Aio ki te rangi, aio ki te papa, aio ki ngā mea katoa, Whare Mauri Ora. So bringing peace to above, peace to the whenua, and peace that's all in between. Ko ahu pātiki te mauka, ko kukurarata te awa, ko takitimu te waka, ko tahu pōtiki te tangata, ko kaitahu, rawa ko Ngāti Parau o ku iwi, ko Wiremu Gray tōku ingoa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ina mana, ina reo, o nā hoewha, o nā mātua waka, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Kia ora, everybody. Thank you for that intro, Greg. It's you know, really humbling to be here. It's a real honour. And thank you, all you, for giving your time to hear my kaupapa. Just before I get into it, just want to talk a little bit of a background and some of the stuff that I've done. I've been working in counselling close to, I think, about 17 years now, and I do a lot of cultural supervision. But before all that, I was a Māori wood carver for about 4 years, and I got taught by 2 master carvers. And I was trying to follow a rugby, professional rugby contract, but the contract unfortunately didn't come to me. But later on, I got into counselling, and where I spent 8 years working at Waipuna Trust. And then from there, I worked in schools around Christchurch. I've worked in schools for about 12 years, and many schools, and from different deciles and different communities. And I'm a father, a husband, and also a rugby coach, and I'm also a wellbeing facilitator. I'm a board member of the Youth Hub with Dame Sue Bagshaw, and I'm a part of the Leadership Lab with Greg and the team. Today we're just going to be covering a Māori understanding. This is a brief understanding, and then we're going to go into my model of wellbeing, Te Whare Mauri Ora. We're not going to use the potama today, but also we're going to look at ways that we can take care of ourselves and looking at the model in terms of our own wellbeing as well. So when I talk about Māori, it's everything. It's our substance, it's our vibrancy, it's our life force. It's in all living things. So it's our spark of essence that exists. So Māori affects and is affected by the environment. If the environment we're in makes us feel valued, then it'll have a positive effect on our Māori. So our Māori can go through many different states, like a volcano going from being dormant, asleep, to an active state of being. So an example is someone who might be shy, sad, or anxious, nervous, or lacking confidence in themselves or their abilities, and they've then grown to having a positive interactional experience that creates hope or a spark of interest to change, and to being actively involved and feeling proud of oneself and their abilities. So going from those different states, Mason Jury talks about the 3 states in terms of the first state being a Mauri moi, which has been in that state of sleep. So a state where potential is yet to be realised. And then going through to the next state is a Mauri oho. There's a light, there's interest, something has happened. The realisation that change is possible. To Mauri Ora, in terms of when they're flourishing in their state of striving towards their full potential. So that's just a brief understanding of Māori. Very brief. Today I'm going to share with you my model Te Whare Mauri Ora and some of the background. So when I was developing it, I was thinking about wellbeing models that work. In my training, I did a course called Te Whare Mauri, Te Whiwhi o Te Hau up in Waikato. And up there I learned lots of different modalities from different cultures. And I thought that the one model that really stands out and stands its time is Te Tiffany Tapfar from Professor Mason Jury. And so to me, that kind of made sense that it's important to build on things that work and work well. And Te Whare Tapfar, as we know, that it's widely used in the DHBs, but also in schools, especially in the secondary schools, physical ed, education as well. So just made sense that that's a good model to use, and one that's really easy to understand. Puma V, if a lot of people that know a lot about positive psychology and Martin Seligman, the Puma V was also a framework that I really liked. And what I liked about that is that I knew that if I combined the two, then rather than just being at balance and being okay from being a deficit to being okay and functioning and balanced in our wellbeing, that we can actually be feeling well, but then also going to feeling fantastic. We can go that next step. So rather than waiting to be the ambulance at the end of the cliff, we can actually do things in our every day that can help us to be actually really flourish in our well-being. So positive emotions, knowing that, the importance of experiencing positive emotions as much as we can. Engagement means to be in that state of flow. So it's kind of like when we're doing something really enjoying and we lose track of time. We're just in that moment. In relationships, we know the importance of relationships, especially around resiliency. We've got someone we can go to and talk to in time of need. That's so important for our well-being. Meaning and purpose. Are we doing something that is meaningful in our life? That helps our state of well-being as well. And that sense of achievement, really important that we go out and set some goals and achieve something in life, but achieve something that is meaningful as well. And that vitality, making sure we're eating and sleeping and looking after our tinana, so we're moving as well. Then there was 5 ways to well-being, which I liked as well, which I know that was in the North Island, a number of schools, and it had quite a lot of research behind it, saying how that schools are using that and they're having some positive effects. So I thought that kind of made sense, and it's nice and simplistic, but also it's a good thing to add to the model. So connecting, making sure that we connect in terms of relationships, being active, give, power of giving, take notice, stop and smell the roses, and the importance of, we're always learning, and the importance of that we keep learning for our lives. 7 habits of happy people. I was thinking, just what makes people happy, and looking at the pursuit of happiness, so the science behind it. And again, a lot of the things that come out of PERMA and 5 ways is underneath that, but looking at that positive mindset as well, in strengths and virtues, and how important that is as well. Voices from rangatahi. So in my time and work, I've done lots of different things. I've taught Māori kids how to carve, but I've run a program through Ngāi Tahu, which I used to take young people out for 5 years on a program to explore their cultural identity. And in essence, it's really to help people to feel proud of who they are. And so I've got lots of different learning that come out of that, and I'll share a wee bit when I share my model as well. The other thing that's really important, my own lived experience, of being Māori, growing up, knowing what it was like for me in the communities that I was in, and that really influenced this model as well. So we'll go to the next slide. So there's the Te Whare Mauri Ora. So again, as we know with Tiffany Tapfar, if one pull is out, then it affects the ceiling. And so really important we have that balance, but also with having all these elements, it encompasses all those things around positive psychology we talked about as well. This here too also represents our whare nui. And so for a whare, and for us in Māori, it means it's a body, it's a human body. And having all these components brings in the whole family. So the po that goes through the middle of a whare nui is a representation of Tāne Mahuta, who separated the parents, so that way they can bring light into the world, into Te Ao Māori. And so that there also brings in that aspect of Te Ao Māori as well. Kia ora. We'll go lead into Papatuanuku. So Papatuanuku, the whenua, it's all, for me, it's about acknowledging that and being thankful that we're on this beautiful whenua, taking the time to notice it, making sure that sometimes we put our cell phones down and get out on the whenua, take our shoes and socks off, look at the colours of the leaves, hear the sounds of the manu. It's really important we take time to notice all of its beauty. But this part is also acknowledging the importance of gratitude and being grateful, and how important that is each day, that we can have something to think about that we're grateful for. I know times when I'm feeling stressed, or times when I'm about to do something, what helps to uplift me is thinking, geez, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky to be doing this. I'm so grateful to be doing this. And that just helps my nerves and helps my well-being as well. Also recognises the importance and the value of our wahine and mothers being at the foundation of our well-being. So important in terms of our Māori worldview, that our women were very tapu, and we needed to nurture and make sure we protected. And that's why, hence in Pōhiri, you might have heard, I know there was some conversation recently with the Waitangi in terms of why wahine aren't at the front of the paipai, and it's because it's to protect them. Because in that state of the paipai, it's the domain of tūmatonga. And so hence why, if a man dies, a man dies. If a wahine dies, we knew the tribe was at stake because the development and the livelihood of our people, we're in trouble. Whenua, connection to our ancestors, knowing the place that we're in. And so when I think of particularly schools, knowing what's the history of this place and how can we bring this into our kura? Or how can I bring this into my leadership as a leader of the school as well? So now we'll lead into rangi nui. So as we look up, it's always important to always be looking up and believing that you can achieve whatever you put your mind to. So this only focuses on a person's desire to achieve and to grow in the pursuit of their personal best. So there's a whakatauki, whai te kahurangi, strive for something of great value. And so it's always remembering that our kids can achieve anything they put their mind to, and for yourselves as well. So we're moving on to the whānau pull-up. So whānau is in terms of our support systems, and recognising for Māori, whānau is whānau hapu and iwi, it's wider than just our nuclear family. And looking at manaakitanga, really understanding that and the value and the importance of that. So when we think of mana, you know, that's through our manaakitanga, the way we are with others and the way that we look and take care of others. So how do you do that as a leader? You know, when you've got people coming into your kura or you've got staff, how do you offer the manaakitanga? And the power of giving and random acts of aroha. I won't say kindness, but aroha, because that's important. It's love that we're giving. So we'll go to the next, and the next one we'll look at the tinana. So looking at the body. So again, it's looking after ourselves, making sure that we're looking after our physical self and listening to our body. So in times when we're under stress, as a leader, what's going on? Listen to our body. Do we need to take a break? Do we need to do some mindfulness or some breathing? Do we need to take time out and get out into the bush, the ngāhere? The importance of being active and how that's good for your body and your mind as well. And in a Māori worldview, it's our connection. It's I am the land and the land is me. So this is where our concepts of Topical Intake going to come through. Wairawatanga, in terms of spirituality, this focuses on a person's sense of self-worth and identity, meaning and purpose. So knowing your purpose is really important. And also knowing what you're about, your values and your character strengths. So as a leader, you know, what is, you know, finding out what's your real values and how do you stick to your values and how do you live by your values? And how that's important that we stick to our values as close as we can throughout our life. And we know that can be a challenge, but it's really important that we have that to work from. Taking the time to connect to people and the environment, to do things that are good for our soul, like going to the beach. And a Māori worldview as well, there is a spiritual understanding. So there's around tōhungatanga in terms of spiritual practices, but I haven't got time to go into it today, but wairua, in terms of the meaning, one of my uncles who's a kaumātua talks about wairua and breaking the word up. So wai equals water and wirua equals two. So the two waters. And so thinking about that in terms of Māori, we live in the two dimensions of spiritual and the physical. But thinking about it for yourselves too, in terms of balance. And so the two waters, so when I'm confident and I'm feeling good on the outside, but that's the same as how I'm feeling on the inside. So if it's a match, that's when our wairua is in balance. That's when it's working well. Then from there, we'll go to the mind. This is our hene naro. Again, the importance of positive emotions and experiencing that as much as possible. So a person's state of mind and optimism as a leader, thinking, am I an optimistic thinker or am I pessimistic? You know, and do I often, so really looking at ourselves in terms of our thinking styles and developing a growth mindset and the power of that. So as a coach and as a leader myself in coaching, I've really learned how to develop a growth mindset. I make sure that people come and observe me when I'm coaching. And sometimes it can be really hard to be challenged and to be told that I can be doing things in a different way, but it's so good for my learning. The importance of lifelong learning and also brain development, learning about how our brain works and what part of our brain we're in at different times. So then we'll move through into the middle, to the Moti. So I'm conscious of time, so we'll go through this. So the Moti is when everything comes together. This is the life force that I talked about. And so for ourselves, you know, how is our life force? Are we vibrant? How are we feeling? So it's also been in that flow state, in that engagement state that we talked about. So trying to experience that as much as possible So knowing what it is that gets us to that state of engagement. What is it I do that makes me feel great? It's also, for us, it's around our identity. For Māori, it's about our identity and our connection to our pepeha. All those things that help build my Māori. It also looks at the environments that we're in. So if this is an organisation or a school, you can go through and talk about what is the Māori of our school. What's the organisation Māori? What's our leadership Māori? So how can we look at the things that are important in terms of our values and how we run as a school? So just thinking about it, how you can use it into your leadership model. So with Māori, what can you do in terms of reading the signs? And so understanding the Māori of others. And so in your leadership groups, do we know when people are being heard? And the environment that we're in. So does the environment make people feel comfortable? Or is there something else that we can do about the environment? Or the values? Do everyone understand the values of the organisation or our school? And do we all work with them well together as a collective? So just really thinking about Moti as a tool of leadership in terms of listening. And then when you sense something, what do you say? Do you say something? Do you ask the question, hey, is someone uncomfortable, or am I going in the wrong way here? Earlier I talked about having that growth mindset. So sometimes as leaders, we need to have that because we're not always going to get it right. And so if we offend someone by mistake, so how do we stop and say, oh, jeepers, did I do something? So noticing people's body language, their Moti, noticing our own Moti when we come and present ourselves, when we, our own presence, it's really important. So yeah, just some few ideas to think about anyway in terms of leadership. Okay, so just for our own selves, just in terms of, being a leader, it's really important that we show up, that we can be present, and we can perform. And so just in here, in terms of the Māori, Te Whare Mauri Ora, I looked at different aspects. And just in here, so Papatuanuku, how often do you think about how grateful you are in life? How often do you take the time to smell the roses and to enjoy the environment? For me, it's powerful that every time I wake up in the morning, I look at the ceiling and just think about how grateful I am to be under a ceiling. This is my ceiling. Someone painted the ceiling straight away. And I notice how that's helped me in my own well-being. Ranginui, how often do you set goals with making sure you're stepping out of your comfort zone from time to time to gain a good sense of accomplishment? So you like talked earlier about the comfort zone. As a leader, it's really important to get people to come and to see you perform and get some ideas from others. I know that can be a real challenge, and that's something I've done with my coaching. It's helped my coaching to go another step further, just getting something that's good, and it's helped me to be better. Whānau, how much time are you spending with your family, friends, or the people that are important to you? Getting that balance right is so important. Tēnana, your body. Are you making sure you're getting a good night's sleep? Because sleep is one of the major things in terms of performance. If we get a good night's sleep, then we're better to perform. The same as eating as well. So what are we eating? Making sure we're eating a good, healthy diet. Especially, being principals and different leaders of organisations, often we neglect ourselves because we're so busy doing the mahi and looking out for others. So these things, and often what goes is our eating, and we create bad eating habits. And so just really thinking about that, that making sure we're preparing our food and trying to eat well. Hinenaro, how do you deal with stress? Do you take a mental break from time to time? Mindfulness as a leader, with the workload that we've got, really important that we have someone we can go and share stuff. We can share about our stress and share about stuff that's troubling us. Talking about mindfulness, often I'll have a shower, and when I'm having my shower, I'll have my head under the water, and I'll say to myself, 1 minute, think of nothing. I'll just have a minute vacation. And geez, it just helps, because it's going to be a bit more energy for the day, and it helps me start my day really well. Wairua, what or where do you go to recharge your batteries? Where or when do you have your time? So your time, that's important for you. Or time, to do the things that you enjoy. And so these are just a few tips that people can think about for yourself in terms of recharging your own batteries, your own Moti. Looking at Moti again, so in terms of leadership, so do we model the importance of wellbeing ourselves? And do we monitor and adjust our own holistic wellbeing and how important that is? So if we want our school, our organisation to be well, to be functioning well, how do we lead it ourselves? And so how do we show that this is important? So do we make sure sometimes we take time off, or we take time to do study of different things, because that's good modelling. Looking at the environment, does the school organisation make people feel proud of their culture? The values of our organisation or school, do we really understand them and work hard towards them? How do people treat each other? And if you're a school, you're looking at the Māori goals from ka kitea, that Māori should be enjoying and achieving success as Māori. In our school, are Māori doing that? Inclusion of others, cultures and identity, getting whānau voice. And so do we have whānau voice in our organisation or our schools? And looking at different practices like restorative practices, see, smell and sense when I go into your school or organisation. Yep, and we'll go further. So in summary, and sorry my internet's playing up a bit, as leaders, it's important that we find a way to get a good life balance. It's critical for our performance and for many roles that you have in life. Provide an environment where a person feels safe, valued, and where they can see themselves is important for their development and well-being. And our presence matters. So making sure we are full in our cup so we can perform to be at our best, in our best ability. What works well for Māori works well for all. He waka e ki noa, we're all on this waka together. And yeah, I just wish you all your best in your leadership roles. And yeah, hopefully that there's something out of this that's going to be helpful that you can take away in terms of your leadership roles. So kia ora tātou.